Hey everyone, welcome back to Ideanthro for the third video in this little series where we are talking about the benefit of getting out on site to look at systems and then how you make time to do that, and then ultimately in this video, the third video, the benefit of taking photographs regularly out on site. So in the last video we were talking about, look, practical ways that you can, I suppose, make sure that you are able to get out to sites regularly without it being a massive onerous problem for you, without it being a massive imposition on your normal life. Get out to sites so you can look at them and you can learn from it. And in this video I want to talk you through, or take you through, something that I started doing. Someone, when I worked at Logan City Council, introduced me to this. I've forgotten who it was, but whoever it was, thank you, because I really appreciate it, because I really appreciate the habit, which was to always just take some photos when I was out and about. And as you can see, we've got a screenshot here. I'm going to demonstrate to you, I suppose, how I keep a track of photos. I would like to say this is actually the second time I've recorded this video, because the first time I learnt something about my screen capture software. So I use a nifty little program that I really like, but it turns out that if you record the video and then forget to press stop on the screen capture software and walk away from your computer for, say, 5 hours and let it go to sleep, the screen capture keeps running. But if the computer goes to sleep, it only captures the video while, something like this anyway. It seemed like it only captured the video while the screen was on, which was probably half an hour, but it made the file 5 hours long, because that's how how long the screen capture ran for. And then I was having all sorts of trouble trying to sync up the audio and the sound. So it's just easier to make this video again. So what you see on the screen here is my photo library of stormwater related photos that I have taken over the years. And so first thing you can see is I group it by location. So if it's in Queensland, I tend to break it down by council area. If it's interstate where I go less often, I'll often just break it down by the major city in the area or the state itself. If it's Logan, because obviously I worked at Logan for a few years, so I started capturing lots and lots of photos. Logan, I also then break it down into ownership. So is it publicly owned, council, privately owned, or were they natural systems? But anyway, let's jump into Logan. So I break it down by area, and then I capture it by device. So these were the location of a whole bunch of stormwater treatment systems in Logan that I was taking photos of. At the time, the numbering was, we were giving asset numbers to stuff at the time, so I used that. I wouldn't do that again, because it turns out as soon as I left council and didn't have a copy of the GIS anymore, the numbers were completely useless, and I had to go back over time and fill them back in with street names. So I tend to use street names now. Anyway, so I break them down by location, and then I break down all my photos and store them by date. So this is Ainsley Street. I think in the last video I might have just really briefly mentioned Ainsley Street just in passing as somewhere I used to drop into. So this was a system that for a few reasons I used to, when I worked at Logan, visit really, really regularly. And when we click in, you can see that. There are 38 items in this folder. Scroll down and see them all. But 31 of those times, so every item here is a day that I visited it and took photos. And 31 of those photographs happened in a 2-year, just over a 2-year period from, if we page up here, from the 12th of March 2010 down to at the very bottom here, the 8th of March 2012, where I worked at Logan. So this demonstrates, in the last video we talked about finding ways to make it convenient to visit systems time and time again and watch them change. This was a system that I made it convenient for myself to visit, and as a result, in that 2-year period, I took photographs at this system on 31 different days. Think about that for a minute. Is that like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself with my math. Is that like 30 out of roughly 600? Let's make it 30 out of 600 to make this easy. Drop a zero. 3 out of 60. I mean, percentage-wise, that's 5% of the time. Right, took me a while to get there. I went there on average once every 20th day. Hey, that actually worked out really well. I think in the last video I talked about going there once every 3 weeks. Well, once every 20th day is once every 3 weeks. There we go. I didn't plan that. Anyway, so I captured photos really regularly about this, and the benefit of capturing photos really regularly is that you can see let's say you've got a system, and so you're going out there regularly and you're looking at stuff and you're learning stuff from it. But there's some things that, at least for me anyway, and maybe this isn't the case for you, but at least for me, there's stuff that would be going on with systems that I wouldn't be noticing at the time. And I'd only notice in hindsight. Like, I might have been visiting a system for 6 months and then something would happen that I didn't expect to happen. I'd be like, oh, what happened there? And I'd want to go back and look. And of course, because I had the photo record, I could go back and look. I could look through and go, oh, okay, what was happening in that particular spot? Oh, you know, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. And I could learn from it. And so here's an analogy I like. Imagine this. Imagine you buy an apple. And it's the best apple in the world. It's shiny, like you know it's going to be crunchy. It comes with like a, you know, satisfaction money back guarantee. I don't know what store you're buying this from that's got that, but you know, incredible. It's got a money back guarantee. This is going to be the best apple in the world. And you bring it home and you place it on your table and you're like, you are the one. And then you're like, oh, I don't really have time to sit down and enjoy you now. So I'm going to go off and do this stuff. I'll eat you later. And you get busy. So you come back tomorrow and you see the apple and you're like, damn, that's a fine looking apple. I don't really have time to eat you now. Then you come back the next day and you're like, you are the one. But unfortunately, no, don't have time. And it goes on. And a week later, you come to the apple and you're like, right, this is it, apple. I'm eating you now. And you grab it and it's incredible. You're looking at it and you're just like, you are going to be the best. And you bite into it and it's soft and smudgy and ugh. And what happened there? Well, for me anyway, something that I've noticed is that I'm not the best at noticing little changes to things. Just those incremental changes time after time at the time while I'm experiencing. So presumably, you know, in the apple analogy we just talked about, presumably the apple was getting a little bit less good every day. But I didn't notice it. The apple still looked amazing to me. I was still holding the picture of the original apple. So every time I looked at it, you know, from day 1 to day 2 it had changed a little. I didn't notice. And then day 2 to day 3 it changed a little, but again I didn't notice. And it was only at the end a bit into it, I was like, wow, you're really not the apple I thought you were. And the same thing, for me anyway, can happen with stormwater treatment systems, where they're changing incrementally over time, but I'm not really picking up the change. And then suddenly at some point there's, you know, a step change has been made and I'm like, you're quite different now. And photos can help us, this photo record that we're talking about here, can help us to look at the systems and say something happens in a particular corner, to look at it and then to go back through the record and see how it was changing. So let's look at a good example of this. I happen to know that, let's see, probably about May, oh yeah, this will do the trick. So the first thing I should point out here is that initially I just used to randomly take photos, and then in systems I was visiting regularly, I started establishing a rough photo monitoring point. So in this Ainsley Street system, I used to try and always take a photograph from roughly this spot that you're seeing here, so that you just had this consistency of the record. And then I'd take other random photos around the place. Notice that I said random. It's not like I went, I'm always going to take these 5 photos, because that can leave us open to the problem we saw before. So I'll take these 5 photos, but say the thing that's changing isn't in those 5 photos. And how do I know? So I've chosen to take the 5 photos because they're the things I think will be important. But say something's changing that I haven't noticed, how do I know that it's important to take a photograph of it? So I started just going around and taking random photos. I'd take a couple of consistent ones from photo monitoring points like this. And then I just kind of take random ones. We'd walk around and snap, snap, snap. Because at some point, if something did happen that, say, the photo monitoring point didn't pick up, I could go back through the record and look for the random photos and see if I found anything. And you'd be surprised how often that's actually the case. So anyway, I used to set up the photo monitoring point, and you can see stuff change over time. So I know this photo here is from, I think May it was. I think it was May 2011. And I know that not long after this, we went and did some work around this system. I had a really great student, Bryce, doing some work, and he arranged for some works to be done for this system. And so, got a photo of this system beforehand in the rain. I bet you if we skip down here, let's go to the end of May. Hey, here we go. Same photo monitoring. Actually, here's a good example. Whoops, sorry there. Let's jump back out. you can see here a whole bunch of photos just from random spots. I'll show you them all. So random photo of inlet rocks, some more random inlet rocks, random photos of planting, just, you know, just different angles, right? They're framed up okay. They're not perfect photos, just different angles, but always making sure somewhere in here, whoops, I've skipped it, is the photo from roughly the photo monitoring point. I didn't bother to get it perfect here because I got one that's a bit off to this side and one that's a bit off to that side. But the point is you can monitor it from a really fairly consistent space. So now we got this photo here where we've got new tube stock in, and it's May, so it's winter because we're in the southern hemisphere. And we could skip forward, say, a month to the end of June, and let's see what's going on here. Oh no, oh no, I thought for a minute I'd not taken a photo from the spot, but here we are. You know, nothing much has happened. It's winter, plants probably aren't growing too much, fair enough. Then let's skip forward, let's say go to September. What's happening at the end of September? A couple of things have grown a little bit. We can start to see some of this carrot starting to grow a little. Then let's skip forward December into the wet season. What's going on here? Yeah, okay, stuff's starting to grow a little bit more. You can see the carrots are really getting up. The lamanders have grown a bit, but not nearly as much, particularly given they're going to turn into something like this over here. They haven't grown that much just yet. Okay, so we can see it kind of changing. Again, we skip forward. Let's go another 3 months forward to March, to the 8th of March. What is happening here? Ooh, have I not taken a photo from the photo monitoring point? Not a good, oh yeah, I have. I've just stood a little bit too close. This is interesting. Hang on. What year is this? Oh, that was 2013. Right, sorry. I skipped a whole 2 years forward then. Let's try March 2012 first. Sorry about that. This is better. Okay, carrots are really getting established. Lamanders are coming along. We can learn some stuff here, right? And then so on and so forth. We can kind of keep going forward. Now let's go to that March 2013. So this is nearly 2 years after the system was planted. I also happen to know there wasn't really a maintenance regime in here. Oh, look at that. Most of the carrots have died. The lamanders have kept growing. You can see the new, what were young ones, a couple of things you got here. But anyway, you get the point of the photo monitoring record is that you can go back. You could, you know, turn up at this point and be like, wow, suddenly there's no carrots here. Oh. Well, actually, this is probably a good example of this, right? Because I stopped working at Logan. So we planted this system out in May 2011. We had some really good growth in the first year through to say March 2012. That's not quite a year, March 2012. I left Logan. And then this photo is another full year later than that. Presumably when I visited this system, I probably went, huh, that's strange, there's no carrots here. I thought there used to be carrots here. And presumably in 2013, I went back through my photo record and went, oh yeah, there were carrots. They've died. Wonder why they've died. And whether I can learn something, whether I can't, you know, you don't really know. But the point is, you can pick up these changes. You can also sometimes pick up changes that are happening subtly over time. Because I can remember at this point here, I can remember kind of looking around the system and going, oh yeah, stuff on the edge is starting to get pretty well established. You know, that's pretty cool. It's going pretty good. But now skip forward to say some that I took really only a couple of months ago in 2016, April 2016. And we look at this particularly. You get all sorts of stuff. Photo of Ben with the camera gear. You know, all sorts of interesting stuff's going on at this system. And because we've got this photo record, we can, you know, we can look at how it's changing over time and try and deduce stuff. Because look at, come on, don't make a liar of me. Did I not? Oh my goodness, the most recent time I came here, I didn't take a photo from the photo monitoring point. Naughty, naughty me. Oh well. Sorry, you can see how much I love doing this. I'm just getting distracted. Let's try it. This was not so long ago. Come on, have I? There we go. This is the photo monitoring point. This is staying a little bit further to the right than I used to, but look at how much those, I think they're lily pillies, I think they're Syzygiums. Look how much those have got up. Anyway, the point here is, if you start establishing a really good, you know, if you're going to start going out to systems regularly, you might as well start going and taking some photos and establishing a good photo monitoring record. So some systems, obviously systems you visit less. I got, that system there, I've only got photos from 2010 of it. That one, only ever visited it once. But then you get others that I used to go to regularly. This is just around the, 3rd Ave is just around the corner from Ainsley Street. I visited it quite a bit over time. I got these records and I go back to them, and it's really beneficial. An example of this is, I actually know quite a few people who do a similar thing to this, who try and take photos really regularly, because you'll be surprised how often in your work you might be, say, designing a system. Actually, this happens to me quite a bit. I'll be sitting down with people, we're talking through ideas for a system or a site, or, someone might be designing something, and they'll be like, oh, I was thinking about doing this, and I'll be like, oh, have you considered that? I've seen, I saw someone do this really well in another system. And because I've got all these photos, I can often go, oh yeah, have you thought about doing this? And by the way, I've got a photo I can show you. And then we can have a discussion about it. Now, whether the person takes my suggestion or not is irrelevant to this. The point is that because I've got all these photos and they're relatively well organized, I normally find them pretty quickly and show them. And then the person's got something to, put a picture to the thing that I'm describing. Gives them a little bit more info. If they like the idea, they can run with it. If they don't have to. No fuss. It just makes things go a little bit better. It helps with work. It helps with learning. It's wicked. Okay, I reckon that's enough talking about my photo keeping. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you've enjoyed the past few episodes on this topic. As always, if you have a question that you would like answered, something water sensitive urban design that you're curious about, something we've said you don't agree about, something you do agree about and want to laud us with praise over, by all means, get in touch. Probably get in touch about the stuff you don't like, more so. Don't want to make our egos too big. But by all means, get in touch. There's a few ways you can find us. You can find us online at www.ideanthro.com, at facebook.com/Ideanthro. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube. Sweet, that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night. I'll see you later. Bye.